Hi everyone, this is Monty Bornstein, and this is my presentation on the New York Child Data Privacy and Protection Act, a very fascinating and important piece of legislation that's coming through the works right now. So I hope you'll enjoy, and let's get right into it. All right, let's have a look at the overview. What's this bill all about? The New York Child Data Privacy and Protection Act was introduced on January 30th, 2023, and it was spearheaded by Senator Andrew Gennardis. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correct, Democrat, 26th 7th Senate District. This bill was modeled after a California bill that Governor Gavin Newsom signed into law last year. It's called the Golden State Age Appropriate Design Code Act, kind of a mouthful. And it really was a first of its kind law in the United States, which required online platforms designs to design their product with children in mind and put up certain guardrails to protect their privacy. And while this piece of New York legislation is similar, it takes further steps in a number of factors meant to help families in the event of serious harm committed against their kids online, which we'll get into a bit later. The current status of this bill is that it's been referred to the Internet and Technology Committee. And the purpose or general idea of this bill is to ensure safer digital spaces for minors in New York State and to stop the predatory collection and sale of their personal data. In other words, to create safer online environments for kids in New York State and to stop collecting and selling their personal information for commercial gain and other factors, which we'll get into shortly. Policy title. All this is taken straight from the bill. It's an act to amend the general business law in relation to enacting the New York Child Data Privacy and Protection Act. So basically, it enacts the New York Child Data Privacy and Protection Act to prevent the exploitation of children's data, which we spoke about before. It requires data controllers to assess the impact of its products on children for review by the Bureau of Internet and Technology, and as well as ban certain data collection and targeted advertising. All right, how does this bill frame its problem? Well, it's pretty simple. They're basically saying how children are vulnerable, they're naive, and they really need to be protected at all costs. So let's have a look at the slide. Children are inexperienced and naive and often unaware of the dangers of exposing personal information and data online, like the possibility of identity theft, cyberbullying, or inappropriate contact. Right? I mean, there's just an endless supply of mostly uncontrolled content, and the anonymity it gives its users. The internet is, I mean, virtually a breeding ground for all sorts of illegal, harmful, or really unacceptable activity. Online commercials and marketing campaigns frequently target or exploit kids with inappropriate or deceptive data, which can lead to negative outcomes. And data is collected and used without their knowledge and consent. So I mean, children are really increasingly using technology and their internet both for school and for entertainment, which really puts them at risk of having their personal information and data collected and used without their knowledge and consent. And many online services and websites that collect and use children's data, they don't have really a good privacy protections in place, which could lead to the misuse of children's data. All right, so just how big is this problem out there? So I tried to compile together here a few statistics and graphs. Apologies for, as you can see, me stuffing them into one page here. I really tried to condense it here. But I think these are interesting graphs, especially figures 1 and 2, which come from Common Sense Media, a fantastic online website, which gives really, really good information with teens, kids, and just different graphs and statistics. I'd really encourage you to have a look there if you're bored one day. So on figure A, you could see the total entertainment screen use among tweens and teens per day. The black was in 2015, and the green's going up to 2021. As you can see, the tweens, which is ages 8 to 12 years old, spend an average about 5 hours and 33 minutes on their screen time. And teens, 13 to 18 years old, went from spending 6 hours and 40 minutes, which is an abnormal amount of time, to in 2020 using about 8.5 hours, which is just mind-boggling. Um, this is adding together the amount of time they spend watching television or online videos, playing video games, using social media, and so on and so forth. These findings don't mean that people devote 5.5 or 8.5 hours each day exclusively on screen time. because they often spend some of the time using multiple screens at once. For example, like they could be scrolling social media while watching television. And so meaning they have 2 hours of screen content that could fit into a single hour of the day. And they often watch or use screen media while they're doing other things like riding in a car or bus or eating breakfast. On figure two, you could see the smartphone ownership by individual, aged 2015 to 2021. So you can see even starting from 8, you have 31% who own a smartphone, going all the way up to like you see 12, 13, 14, 15, where you're going into 71, 91, basically 90 high percentage of children owning their own electronic device. So given that with the amount of time they're using it, they are online quite a bit. On figure three, which comes from the WHO, you can see that 15% of children report that they've been cyberbullied, 50%, and a few other graphs you can see as well. I'm not going to get into too much here, stretch for time. Figure four, an interesting graph I found from Pew Research, which more than 9 in 10 parents say that parents have a lot of responsibility protecting children from inappropriate online content. Um, I mean, I guess a parent really does feel the need to protect their child, so they would put a lot of the responsibility on themselves. But nevertheless, they do give a lot of that responsibility as well, as you can see, to technology companies and the government, giving 38 a lot percent, 38% a lot, 41 some, or 25 and 40. But there's still a nice amount that parents expect technology companies and the government to take responsibility of in this realm. All right, so what does this bill hope to accomplish? What are its goals? Well, they really want to protect children online. How are they going to do this? Well, they're going to do this by creating an ongoing obligation for app and website developers to conduct data protection impact assessments. So they want to make sure they're doing that on continuous basis. They want to stop the collection of child user data unless developers can demonstrate a compelling reason for such collection. So they really want to crack down on that. They want to offer the highest possible privacy settings to child users advertising by default. So they want to make sure when they're on their platforms, by default, some of these advertisements or whatever these things popping up, they're at the highest possible level of privacy by default. They want to create portals. This is something really interesting. They want to create portals by which users and their parents can report emergent problems and provide access to child user accounts to parents or guardians, law enforcement where necessary. I mean, there's just so many stories of parents just trying to scramble and trying to figure out what to do, given their kids are in danger. Or a lot of things are happening online. Some of these people could absolutely ruin a kid's life, and there's nobody to talk to. So they really want to try to implement this, something that's really needed. I wasn't sure about this next one. Wants to create civil fines for law violators. I mean, that goes without saying. The only reason why I put it in there is because they want to take the money to be collected by the attorney general for the people who violate this law. And they want to give it towards public awareness and education campaigns. So I guess I could throw that in there. And finally, a private right of action for families and children harmed by irresponsible actors who break the law knowingly or recklessly. All right, so who are the supporters and opponents of this bill? Well, given that this bill is relatively new, it's very fresh, a few months old, so I emailed the senator for help on this, and he was gracious enough, his aide was gracious enough to help me out on some of this. Let's take a look at some of the advocates. New York Attorney General Letitia James supports this. The New York Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. Fair Play is another supporter. Children and Screens, Protect Young Eyes. And anytime you see a star over here, you can see them here on the opponents. It's based on the California bill. Common Sense Media, another one who I mentioned earlier. As soon as they get their eyes on this bill, I'm sure they will support it as well. And the American Psychological Association, based on the other bill, I'm sure they would support it here too, given that it's so similar. Who are the opponents? Well, the guy told me that there are currently no public groups opposed to the bill, but I could tell you that I'm sure there will be coming down the ringer, just like it was on the California bill. Based on the California bill, tech trade groups, an example that would be NetChoice, whose members include Amazon, Google, Meta, and TikTok. Another one is the Chamber of Commerce, Chamber of Progress, the IP Justice, and LGBT Tech Institute. Computer and Communications Industry Association, and Interactive Advertising Bureau. A bunch of these people actually sued the state. I had a look at some of those papers, quite interesting. And essentially, what they're saying is that it's unconstitutional in a way, it's violating free speech, and like many other broad terms, it leaves the words like harm or risks undefined. So there's really there's a sort of vagueness. I don't know if that's a word. At points it's a bit vague, and they're worried that a bill like this will discourage websites from hosting and promoting content for users under the age of 18. I'm referring specifically over here to the Chamber of Commerce. Because they have a interest in the resolution of this case because it implicates the stability of the internet economy. So, what are the politics on this bill? Well, the senator's aide told me that this does have bipartisan support. Similar bills were already passed in Utah, where there's a supermajority Republican legislature, and it was signed by a Republican governor. Similar bills were also passed in California, New Jersey, and it sort of reflects these fundamental principles are popular and they're working their way across the country. When New York last took on big tech in 2018 with the bill to criminalize revenge porn, high-powered lobbyists funded by industry groups scared lawmakers away from voting for it. That legislation faded until a series of post-exposés sounded the alarm. And the bill was eventually passed and signed into law by former Governor Andrew Cuomo in July in 2019. It's interesting to note on that a Brooklyn-based victims' right attorney, her name is Carrie Goldberg, who specializes in digital privacy violations. She helped pen the bill after realizing many of her cases involved incidents that could have been prevented if such safety measures were already in place. And she had a really um, um, impactful quote. She mentioned how crazy it was that these lobbyists scare these lawmakers away. She said, "quote It's deeply disturbing that Google and tech lobbyists were quiet as a church mouse for the 5 years this bill has been percolating in Albany, and then literally the morning it's up for a vote, they bulldoze in with coercive demands on our lawmakers to change language. It's a disgrace how weak our lawmakers look for bowing down to these corporate overlords." End quote. So yeah, you could really see how when it comes to politics over here, a lot of them could be bought off. And these are problems that are happening all the time. All right, so what has been the legislative process on this bill? Well, like I said earlier, given that it's a very relatively new, very fresh bill, a couple of months old, there hasn't been much. It was originally introduced as Senate Bill S9563 in the 2021-2022 legislative session, and then it was reintroduced as Senate Bill S3281 in the 2023-2024 legislative session. Right now, the status is that it's in the Senate committee, and it was referred to the Internet and Technology Committee. All right, so a couple of questions and answers to help discuss and evaluate this bill from my personal perspective. What should be done to move this policy forward? Well, something like this could always use more advocating, more advertisements, ironically, what this bill is trying to do. But you could spread the message out in advertisements and continue getting um, the support from both sides of the aisle. What are its chances of passing? Well, there are contemporary and similar bills have passed. Like I mentioned earlier, California's bill, which was based on a very famous UK bill, um, um, bills in Utah, New Jersey have passed, and similar bills like the Kids Online Safety Act, COSA, and Children's and Teens Online Privacy and Protection Act, which is calling it the COPA 2.0, are ready for Senate vote. So it's definitely going to be an uphill battle, just like the California bill, because tech companies will come at the lawmakers hard. They'll sue probably just like they've done in California. And at the end of the day, even if it will be languished and fade for a little bit, this legislative trend should put tech companies on notice. So the more and more this is getting out there, and the more and more states are falling in line when it comes to these very important measures to help protect children, this will put tech companies on notice more. So they're watching and they're listening, and I'm sure that they're taking action already to help maybe even quiet this as much as possible. So the more we advocate for this, the more good it does for everyone. All right, what's is an effective policy? Yes, it has lots of potentials, like I mentioned in the goal. If something like this could be um, put into law, There are a lot of good stuff that could come from this. Um, California's bill was signed into law and it's going to take effect in 2024. Really curious to see how it goes, which leads into the next one of any personal concerns. Um, yes, given some of what the opposers have been saying, that I prefer to see less vague and more descriptive terms on what they actually are trying to get. They do put out plenty, but there's definitely they could be more descriptive. I'm a little bit concerned about heavy and unfair policing. Once people get power to police these kind of things, they tend to abuse the power at times. So it's important to make sure that when and if this does get put into place, that there's fear and balanced policing on this. And honestly, I prefer to see more of what it puts later on in the bill of putting up these emergency contact setups. Like I said earlier, there's so many stories of kids unfortunately getting into trouble and their lives could be ruined just by sending out different information and these parents, once they finally step in and try to take control of the situation, there's nobody to talk to. And so, one of the key aspects that sets the new bill apart from its predecessor is that stipulation requiring tech companies to provide parents with a way to notify them in case of emergency. It's sort of like a 911 for digital crimes. Another factor of the bill is that it requires that tech companies expedite warrants and subpoenas relating to crimes against children, and to give parents or legal guardians access to their kids' accounts if they die. Unfortunately, there's so many cases of kids committing suicides and then leaving up different messages and different things on their social media page, and a lot of people leave on it um, terrible comments and different things that give the family a lot of anguish and pain. And some of them just want to get inside there and take control of the account, not necessarily trying to completely remove the account. But again, they give so many issues and different things that they make you do if you can even get a hold of them to get a hold of these accounts. So I think these aspects of the bill, I hope it doesn't get sort of put to the wayside in lieu of wanting to really police and take control of tech companies. I think these ideas are very very important as well. And at the end, I put a little quote, something Senator Gornatis says is that at the end of the day, we're not trying to shut down social media. We're just trying to put smart, thoughtful, and important guardrails in place. And I don't see how or why people would be opposed to it. Now, I could see why people are being opposed to it, but at the end of the day, I do agree with that sentiment. We're not looking to take control of the internet. We're really not trying to destroy it in a sense, even though there's a lot of dark um, evil material matter going down there. We really just want to put up smart and important guardrails to help protect children, the most vulnerable upon us. So that was honestly my last slide, but then I came across this interesting article from Giggle magazine, which is a great name, honestly, which is to help put in preventative interventions. Most of these are common sense, but it's helped to stress them anyways. Number one, make sure your home computer and network have safety features installed, including a full firewall and anti-spyware, having a good strong password. Three, to teach your children not to open up emails from people they don't know and not to respond to advertisements. Four, make sure your children never share their passwords with anyone else, even friends. Five, make sure your children also never give out any personal information online, such as full names, phone numbers, and addresses. And six, to teach your children to log out of personal accounts, especially when using a public computer. Most of these things are common sense, but it's always good to reiterate them and really to educate our kids when it comes to matters online. Like I said earlier, we're in an age right now where being online is the new norm, and kids are using it more and more and more, more time online. So as we get into the new age of online living, it's so important, especially to keep the most vulnerable upon us children. Um, with simple preventative interventions like these and to help advocate for important legislative matters to help put even more protection when it comes to children. Like I said, they're the most precious and vulnerable upon us. They must be protected at all costs. So thank you, and looking forward to any comments or questions on these. All right.